Hello and good day, Level 1 learners. Welcome to the very first module of NCM 103, Final Term, Module 1F, Stress Adaptation. This module focuses on the concept of stress and on how to adapt with it. Stress may be considered as positive or negative. Through this discussion, learners would be able to identify and know the importance of adapting to stress as they move along towards their journey on becoming nurses. Together with Dr. Romel P. Mariolas, we hope that this discussion will produce fruitful outcomes that can be applied to our day-to-day encounter and living with stress. This is Mr. Benedict Dwight Gilipiten. Enjoy and have fun learning. Course Learning Outcomes, or the CLOs. After 6 hours of varied teaching-learning interaction, the Level 1 learners will be able to define various terms related to stress adaptation, explain the concept of stress adaptation using various theoretical methods, discuss the concepts of stress and adaptation, general systems theory, and psychological responses to stress, compare the General Adaptation Syndrome, or the GAS, and Local Adaptation Syndrome, or LAS. Identify factors which influence the response to stressors. Apply to self and to others the General Well-Being Scale Test, or what we call as a stress test, to improve awareness. Compare different psychosocial defense mechanisms which man utilizes as a means of adapting to daily life situations. And lastly, to show some techniques in stress management. Definition of terms. We will be defining 8 relevant terms in association with stress adaptation. First, we have the term stress. Stress is defined as the body's physiological reaction to any stimulus that evokes change. It is also described as a universal experience that can be a catalyst for a positive change, or it can be the source of discomfort and pain. Take note that stress promotes change to an individual. Second term, stressor. It is defined as a stimulus that evokes the need to adapt. A stressor may be in the form of a situation, event, or agent that threatens a person's security. To add, stressors in themselves are neutral. A stressor is neither good nor bad. It will depend on the individual's perception, which would determine either a positive or negative outcome. Third would be distress. It is defined as a state when stressors evoke an ineffective response. This results in a negative outcome. In contrary, we also have the term eustress, which promotes a positive outcome. Fourth is adaptation. It is defined as an ongoing process by which individuals adjust to stressors in order to achieve homeostasis. It is also described as a holistic response which involves all dimensions of an individual: physiological, psychological, cognitive, social, and spiritual. Always remember that we need to adapt with stress for us to achieve homeostasis. Fifth would be feedback, defined as the transmission of evaluative or corrective information on stress. In simpler definition, this refers to how individuals respond and react to a given stressful situation or event. Next, we have defense mechanism. It is defined as an unconscious psychological process. These mechanisms protect individuals' minds from anxiety. These are also employed to achieve and maintain psychological homeostasis. Seventh, homeostasis, defined as the body's self-regulation of physiological process. This can also be termed as a steady state. And the last term is equilibrium. It is defined as a state of rest and balance. Equilibrium can also be used interchangeably with the term homeostasis. A balance in all dimensions of life is required to achieve homeostasis. Moving on to the different theories and models in relation to the concept of stress adaptation. We will be discussing on the following. Number 1, Betty Neuman's system model. Number 2, the response-based model of stress. Number 3, Sister Calista Roy's theory of adaptation. Number 4, the stimulus-based model of stress. And lastly, number 5, the transactional model of stress. Betty Neuman system model. This is a nursing theory based on the individual's relationship to stress, its reaction, and the factors related to it. Betty Neuman describes the system model as a unique, open system-based perspective that provides a unifying focus for approaching a wide range of concerns. This Neuman system also acts as a boundary for a single client, a group, or even several groups. A client system in interaction with the environment delineates the domain of nursing concerns. Response-based model of stress. This model is based on physiologic manifestation and also the involvement of the nervous and endocrine systems. Take note that through this model, individuals perceive stress as a response to a disturbing stimuli. Adaptation Model by Sister Calista Roy. This is based on the understanding or perception of a person. This model also measures the preparedness or unpreparedness in preventing stressors. It also sees the individual as a biopsychosocial being in continuous interaction with the changing environment. Take note, coping strategies of an individual are considered to be an important variable in this model. The stimulus-based model of stress. This model mainly focuses on stress as a stimuli. Unlike the recent response-based model, individuals perceive stress as a disruptive event within the environment. Transactional model of stress. This model views stressor as an individual response needed in psychological and cognitive processes. This primarily focuses on the concept that individuals' capacity to cope and adjust to challenges and problems is a consequence of transactions or interactions that occur between the individual and the environment. Physiological response to stress. The stress response, which can be adaptive or maladaptive, is considered a non-specific response of the body to any demand. To help us understand the effects of these responses, we will be discussing on the General Adaptation Syndrome or GAS and the Local Adaptation Syndrome or LAS. Before we proceed with the two adaptation syndromes, here are the different types of stressor. We have physiological, psychological, cognitive, environmental, and socio-cultural. Please familiarize yourselves on these different types. The General Adaptation Syndrome. Hans Selye, in 1976, a Canadian physiologist, introduced the concept of the General Adaptation Syndrome or GAS. The GAS is the same whether the stressor is actual or imagined, present or potential. In other words, the physiological reactions of the body are essentially the same regardless of the source of the stress. This concept has three stages: the alarm stage, resistance stage, and the exhaustion stage. Stage 1 focuses on the initial response of the body as the individual perceives the stress. This stage is also known as the preparatory stage. Stage 2, the fight or flight response occurs. Actual symptoms and other activities are evident in this stage. And the last stage, stage 3, from the name itself, it is when the body has used up all its adaptive energy and may lead to maladaptation. On the other hand, we have the local adaptation syndrome or LAS. The local adaptation syndrome is still the same, the physiological response to a stressor, but it only affects a specific part of the body. The LAS is usually a temporary process that is resolved when the affected area is restored to its steady state. Aside from the physiological responses and manifestations of stress, we also have psychological, cognitive, behavioral, and spiritual. Please familiarize yourselves with the different types. Factors influencing stress response. We have the following. First, intensity. Second, the scope. Third, duration. Fourth, number and nature. And lastly, number 5, predictability. For these factors, a positive or negative outcome may result depending on the individual's perception to stress. First, intensity. The term intensity refers to the quality of a certain stimuli in relation to stress. An individual's response may vary depending on the stress intensity. The higher the intensity, the higher the risk for an individual to cause maladaptation. Second would be the scope. The term scope refers to the extent of area or a subject matter in relation to stress. The more material or people involved in stress, the higher the possibility of not adapting to it. Third is the duration. Duration refers to the time or period of stress. The longer stress is experienced by an individual, the more problems would occur. And because of these problems, the risk for maladaptation also increases. Fourth would be the number of stress or stressors and its nature. Having many stressors in life would result to a more maladaptive behavior. Its nature also affects how an individual copes and responds to the given situation. And lastly, predictability. A highly predictable stress or stressor, the more favorable response may be evoked. How to measure well-being of an individual in relation to stress. An instrument or scale known as the Warwick-Edinburgh Mental Well-being Scale, or the WEM-WBS, is utilized to measure an individual's well-being. The Warwick-Edinburgh Mental Well-being Scale is developed to enable the measuring of mental well-being in the general population and also the evaluation of projects, programs, and policies which aim to improve mental well-being. The 14-item scale in the WEM-WBS has 5 response categories, some to provide a single score. The items are all worded positively and cover both feeling and functioning aspects of mental well-being, thereby making the concept more accessible. The scale has been widely used nationally and internationally for monitoring, evaluating projects and programs, and also investigating the determinants of mental well-being. Defense mechanisms. These are defined as unconscious operations that protect an individual's mind to anxiety. Just as the body has physiological mechanisms, example, the immune system, the inflammatory response, to defend against infection and disease, our mind also has its own psychological protective mechanisms. Here are the common defense mechanisms with their description. Please familiarize and prepare specific examples during our enhancement session next meeting. In relation to stress, anxiety, and crisis, we have the Kubler-Ross grief cycle, or also known as the stages of grieving. This cycle will be applicable as a result of a maladaptive situation. It has 5 stages: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Kubler-Ross originally applied these stages to people suffering from terminal illness and later to any form of catastrophic personal loss, such as job, income, and freedom. This may also include significant life events, such as the death of a loved one, divorce, drug addiction, the onset of a disease or chronic illness, an infertility diagnosis, as well as many tragedies and disasters. And for the last part of this module, the common stress management techniques. These are just some of the ways on how we handle stress. First technique to handle stress would be through irregular exercise. Physical activity can help lower our overall stress levels and improve the quality of life, both mentally and physically. Exercising regularly can have a positive effect on our mood by relieving tension, anxiety, anger, and mild depression that often go hand in hand with stress. It can also improve the quality of our sleep, which can be negatively impacted by stress, depression, and anxiety. It can also help boost our confidence levels. Second technique, having a good support system. Research has shown that having a good and strong support system has many positive benefits, such as higher levels of well-being, better coping skills, and a longer and healthier life. Studies have also shown that social support can reduce depression and anxiety. A strong support system can often help reduce stress. Third technique, time management. It is important to learn time management techniques so that even the stress and pressures are too high, we can know how to be healthier, happier, and be more productive. The ultimate goal is work-life balance, stress relief under pressure, and overall mental well-being. Fourth technique is through the use of guided imagery and visualization. Guided imagery and visualization is a method for managing stress. It's a relaxation technique that involves visualizing positive, peaceful settings like a beautiful beach or a peaceful meadow. This technique is also known as guided meditation. Fifth technique, relaxation. When a person feels stressed, the body responds by releasing hormones that increase our blood pressure and raise our heart rate. This is called the stress response. Relaxation techniques can help the body relax and lower the blood pressure and heart rate. And lastly, the sixth technique, journal writing. Journaling generally involves the practice of keeping a diary or journal that explores thoughts and feelings surrounding the events of our life. Journaling, as a stress management and self-exploration tool, works best when done consistently, but even occasional, sporadic journaling can be stress relieving when the practice is focused on the gratitude or emotional processing. This ends our lecture discussion on NCM 103 Module 1F, Stress Adaptation. Dr. Marioles and I are hoping that you have learned something out from this discussion. We also hope that you were able to grasp relevant lessons which can be applied in our daily lives. Always remember, stress is everywhere. All we have to do is to adapt with it. As future nurses, we believe that you can conquer and live with it positively. Once again, this is Mr. Benedict Dwight Julipitan. Thank you, God bless, and keep safe always. See you on our enhancement session.